Dan and Martin, great talk on an October 23rd Monday. It's beautiful out. It's been beautiful weather here in St. Louis, and it's enough to go to a pumpkin patch if you're a family, I'll tell you that.
Dan, it was a great weekend, not only sports, little family time. We went to the pumpkin patch. There's a shout-out. If they want to sponsor us, that's fine. It's Centennial Farms in Augusta, Missouri, and they have the old newspaper clippings on the wall. It's a family farm that goes back to the 1820s. And then you do a little hayride. You pick your own pumpkin. We had a great time.
Awesome.
I watched the beginning of Mizzou, and then we got in the car, and I turned the game on, and it's your buddy Mike Kelly, my buddy Howard Richard. I mean, they're both our buddies.
I thought they were your friends too.
Taking sides. I'm sorry, but you know Mike very well.
I do,
and I like Mike, and I know Howard fairly
Kelly.
well.
Sorry.
But there's something about listening to college football on the radio.
It's pretty cool.
When I was a kid, it was like Saturday afternoon. The game probably wasn't even on TV. Listening to Bill Wilkerson, cutting lawns, raking leaves.
I listen to college football, random college football games all the time.
Yeah, I love college for whatever reason. College football on the radio. I just really enjoy that.
I enjoy baseball on the radio. I've been listening a lot to playoff baseball, and if it's done properly, which it is on ESPN radio, it's been great. I enjoy that too.
What if it's not properly? What would like guys are I don't really know who's at bat right now. I haven't looked at the roster.
Just not descriptive. Give me
Which
a little
is the radio deal.
Yeah, give me some description. And I like that. I like it's old school too.
This is why I was bad at TV play-by-play. I filled in for you, I want to say, at the it was Fox Midwest, and it was the state high school basketball tournament. And I'd done a little bit of radio stuff here and there, maybe even back at Marquette. So I got to do the game. I don't remember if it was Tom Me, but one of the directors, they said, listen, you sound good, you did your homework, but you don't have to tell us everything. I was calling the TV like radio.
Yeah.
And like flips it left side over the right. And they're like, we can see all of that.
You can see everything. You give a little nugget here and there. Speaking of the high school basketball championships,
Those were the Misha tournaments.
Yes, they were. The first games I did play-by-play was at the old 1260, I think. Isn't that right? WIBV?
Was it IBV maybe back in the day?
I did Larry Hughes' championship game with CBC.
Really?
So I did that on radio. I'm still trying to find the tape of that because I kept so many tapes. I want to give it to Bobby Mack over at Priory now, but he was the head coach at CBC at the time. And then one of the great games that I've ever seen in basketball, Vashon was number one in the country, and they had to get by Poplar Bluff and the Hansborough brothers, and it was back and forth, and Poplar Bluff won, and it's one of the great high school basketball games I would put it in my top 5 of basketball games I've ever seen. It was awesome. So there are great high school games that go on, and we're getting close to districts. I think they fire up this weekend. We'll have to get Jim Powers on that. And then, obviously, the basketball season is here, but man, there's some good high school sports.
And, Dan, I'm going to tie it all together because I want to do this properly. In my head now, I'm thinking of the announcer doing it improperly. I'm just laughing at the premise that a guy like shows up and says, who's playing, the Astros? Oh, yeah, well, they're pretty good. Like, doesn't know what they're doing.
I've seen that, too.
Well, we could get really specific. But I'll tie it all together. The Missouri Athletic Club, which is a great sponsor of Scoops with Danny Mac. I love going there. You love going there. They helped Floyd Irons, the longtime Vashon coach, put in this basketball court at the Family and Youth Center. It's over there kind of by Crown Candy, just north of the Dome downtown. And they needed a new basketball court. And I think they reached out to Troy Robertson at the MAC and said, do you guys have any kind of charitable wing? And they ended up paying for it, which is awesome.
I didn't know that.
No, yeah, they did. So Floyd is working with this youth and family. It's basically a community center for kids after school. He said, Mom, we're trying to get them off the streets, man. We're trying. You know how Floyd, he's got passion for it. But when you said his name, it reminded me that the MAC recently hooked up with Floyd to get the basketball floor done.
I was at the MAC this morning putting in a
Jesus. What time do you get up?
I get up, I don't know, 4:45, 5. Yeah, I'm up and at 'em.
You're like Nick Ragone.
I don't sleep, so
Nick, the
I get
Ascension
up.
Charity Classic, our buddy Nick, he has chronic insomnia.
I didn't know that.
He sleep because I made fun of him one time, and I said, dude, when do you sleep? He goes, well, I have chronic insomnia. I go,
so never.
Oh, okay. But I said, it sounds awful. He goes, no, it's great. He goes, I'm so productive. He sleeps like 4 hours a night.
There are certain people that, I'm not going to name the person, but he didn't sleep a lot. And he went and got a...
Jim Edmonds Broadcasting.
No, He went and got a test down in, I want to say it was Houston, and they basically said you're one of the odd human beings that doesn't need a ton of sleep. So when you sleep an hour, it's like the equivalent of somebody else sleeping 3 or 4. And so he would get little cat naps, feel pretty good, and be able to go from sun up to sundown. And I was with that person at times. It was tough.
Okay.
It was tough.
Wow.
We're going to leave it at that.
I think I know who that is.
We'll leave it at that.
Big boy. All right, so
we'll move on.
Those would be great stories.
Oh, they were.
I did you a favor, by the way.
Good. Thank you.
I did not walk in early. I was supposed to be here at 8 a.m. I pulled into the parking lot at the Scoops World Headquarters. The valet asked if I need anything. I said, I'm good, thank you. And I looked at the clock, and it was like 7:52. I was early. The kids were off to school early. I don't like showing up early to anything. Like if you invite people over, hey, we're having people over, come over at 4. Some people show up at like 3:56, and I'm like, whoa, 4
Too
means
early.
4 means 4:30,
especially with a party or Thanksgiving, Christmas, that kind of thing.
The worst. You're still vacuuming, like, oh, they're here.
Exactly.
Who's here? Oh, and we all have those friends who are who they are.
But the host doesn't back time it properly.
You got to build that in.
You got to build a half-hour window.
So if you say 4, you're trying to be ready by 3.
3:30.
But I'm like, I'm not walking in. Dan's got, to deal with all the employees, and I'm like, I'm not. And then you texted me and said, hey, I'm here and I'm ready, and I was just sitting in my car.
Well, that's why I did that, because you still, over a 2 or 3 year period, haven't figured out where my car is
and
recognize that I'm inside.
You're actually here. All right, let's get to it, Dan. What do you want to lead off with? Baseball, Blues, Mizzou City, Mizzou, 16th in the country, 7-1.
That's in the coaches poll.
I think I don't know. Well, now I got to. Oh, dang it! Can you want me to go back and look? I think they're in both 16th, but whatever.
Okay.
They moved up from 20. They're 7-1. Off week this week. Georgia looms. Georgia's got to play Florida this week. They should hammer Florida, but you never know. It's a rivalry game, so you're going to get them coming off of that, and you're going to be, you're going to be underdogs, of course. But you go into that game with as much momentum as you could possibly have.
At Georgia,
a week away.
This takes you back a little bit to Larry Smith when he turned it around. And I'm not saying that Eli had to turn the whole thing around, but it was just kind of stagnant.
It was flat. Yeah, I would say that's fair.
Gary Pinkel had it rolling for a while. If they can somehow continue the way that they're going, I mean, you're looking at a 8-9 win season, a pretty decent bowl, and you say, okay.
9 would be going 2-2 the rest of the way, which is possible.
The Wingo kid may be going from SLU to Mizzou.
That announcement is Wednesday, and there's a lot of vibes that it's going to be Mizzou.
I mean, that's huge. Yeah. Now, you'd have Luther Burden on one side, Wingo on the other. Luther Burden is awesome, isn't he?
He goes up and gets it, and he's
speed,
physical.
big.
Yeah, and he's not imposing the way, like, size, like DGB was, or even Denari Alexander, but he just grabs that ball, knocks people over. I love that, the style that he plays with. Yeah, and then the kid, Cody Schrader.
They're finding different ways to win, too. Schrader running. Sometimes it's Luther Burden. They're finally throwing the deep ball, which they never did. He doesn't just check off. He's now got threats. So I'm with you. I mean, the Schrader kid is fun to watch. All of them are fun to watch.
Schrader leads the SEC in rushing.
I didn't know that.
The kid from Lutheran South who went to Truman State, because for a while I think we're all guilty of it, saying, well, it's a nice story, but where's the 5-star running back? Yeah, good for the local kid. Where'd he come from? Truman State. Yeah, get a real running back. That's out there, that kind of mindset. And he even had a quote in the postgame on Saturday. He said, every time I play, I'm reminding myself I belong in the SEC. I know I belong in the SEC, but I've got to play that way every week. He has that. He knows what people are saying. Like,
how about to go off a little tangent here? But the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, it was the D2 Heisman winner, and he shows up and puts up numbers. And the whole point is, sometimes you just need a chance, and there are players everywhere. They will find you. Now, that's one thing. They'll find you. However, will you get the chance? So you're kind of labeled already. It's a D2 kid. He's fine as a backup. This Schrader kid, he played at Truman State, whatever. He gets a shot. We're finding, I think, with the transfer portal that more and more kids are getting a shot. And that to me, that's good. I love the transfer portal. I didn't think I'd like it at first. You have to re-recruit your kids in some way. You're recruiting other kids on the other side. It's a free-for-all. It's the wild, wild west. And I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. How about Caleb?
By the way, your Bears guy, Tyson Bagent, like an agent with a B. Tyson Bagent. He went to Shepherd College.
Shepherd College.
Where
God is that? I have never even heard of it.
It's in West Virginia.
Oh, that's right.
I looked it up. I mean, I had no idea.
I did know that.
In all of my years of sports and reading scores,
never heard of it.
I've never heard of Shepherd University.
I thought I've heard of every university out there. D2, D3, you name it. I was like, yeah, I've heard of that.
If I'm a Chicago TV station, I'm sending a crew to Shepherd University today and going to the bookstore or the coffee shop and say, what's everybody saying? That's unbelievable.
It is.
And Justin Fields actually was playing well before he got hurt. But it's amazing how many random names end up playing quarterback in the NFL. And there's some that are retreads that are still, the Gardner Minshew guys are still around. But with all the injuries, there are so many random names at the highest level playing QB.
One of the disappointing things of the weekend, not only did City lose, which who cares, they're resting guys, they got the playoffs coming up. Maybe the edge is taken off a little bit, but the crowd was great. They unveiled that huge painting, I guess it was.
Tifos.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but they're called Tifos.
It was really cool.
Super cool.
Thanks to Mark Abel and the City people. My son got to go down there. I did not. I did not. My son went with a buddy of his. They've been so good to my family, and I appreciate it. My kids have been down there a bunch. They absolutely love it. But correct me if I'm wrong, Martin. Next Sunday, their game is at, it 8 Central?
9 o'clock.
9 Central?
9 Central.
That sucks.
It really stinks. And they knew this was coming. The game is on Fox Sports 1, and I guess there's a game before it at 6, maybe Cincinnati. So it's a doubleheader. But can you start the other one at 6 Eastern, at least so we can be at 8? I mean, it's just obscene. I know TV rules today. We're hypocrites because we work at TV, but 9 o'clock, and if it was Saturday, it'd be less of a blow.
Yeah.
It's Sunday night. Now, it'll be packed. People will go crazy. It'll be festive and fun. And I guess if you want to take your kids, you might just say, Johnny's going to be late to school on Monday.
Or just skip school. I mean, that's another thing to do. I mean, it's so unique. It's our first playoff game with soccer, and unfortunately starting at 9. It made me think of why we don't have popularity with the baseball playoffs. If you're a baseball diehard, you're watching. I'm a baseball diehard, so I watch. However, some of these games start so late over the years, especially when it was like the Yankees and the Red Sox, and it starts so late, and you want to watch, and these kids can't get to the game because they got school the next day.
That's why I love the CS, because there's always the afternoon version. Like today, you got the Phillies playing, and whenever people are listening to this, but the Phillies are first. That game's at 4 Central. We got a Game 7 in Houston. What theater? I don't have any rooting interest between the Rangers and the Astros, although I'm kind of with the folks who are like, when Dusty won, I was happy. I like Dusty Baker, but I am kind of sick of the Astros. I'm not as hung up on the cheating anymore. Rangers have Mike Maddox, who was here, but the Adolis Garcia, I went back and looked. And
Scherzer starting tonight, by the way.
Scherzer in a Game 7, who you got Verlander in one dugout, Scherzer in the other. The Mets owner's got to be thinking,
cow.
How much money did I spend on these two guys to pitch for two other teams?
It's unbelievable.
But Adolis Garcia, I wanted to ask you, do you remember him in 18 when he came up? But not a lot of at-bats.
Do you remember when he rounded third? I want to say it was against the Brewers, and he slipped in a must-win game.
That's right. That was him. Okay, I was getting him and a Rosarena mixed up.
It was Adolis Garcia.
He slipped in a big game and felt terrible.
Yeah.
Kind of like, remember the Colton Wong picked off at first?
Exactly. Very
and for like
similar.
20 years, like, I'm here with Colton Wong, a 4-time Gold Glove winner. Remember that time you got picked off?
Are you over it yet?
Yeah, it kept coming up. Garcia, that's right. That was him.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, he wasn't here long, and I think they felt like there wasn't a spot for him. That's after Piscotty, after Grichuk even. I guess the Baders of the world were here. I'm trying to remember.
They're starting to come. Tyler O'Neill was starting to emerge.
Yeah. And they sold him to Texas for cash. Now, Texas did famously expose him as well. They designated him
Any team could have had him.
Correct. So it wasn't just, hey, the Cardinals let him go.
Yeah, that one doesn't sting as much.
But he is fun to watch, and they're booing him like crazy after everything that went on in Game 5, the fight. And what does he do? Just destroys a grand slam in the ninth.
How about the power that he's got, man?
He swings so violently.
But that's today's game.
Yep.
I mean, if you're not hitting home runs, and the Phillies are the perfect example of this, in postseason play, if you're not hitting home runs, you're not winning. And if you don't have power pitching to counter that, you're just not winning. And that's the way the game is played.
You like Bryce Harper? I
love him.
I didn't in the past. He's such a bro, and now I really like him. He's grown on me.
Didn't you think he handled the Genesis Cabrera fastball to the face as well as you possibly could?
That was a sign. It was about 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it's 2 years ago.
Where, yes, he got hit, and Cabrera felt terrible, and then Harper's like, dude, it's okay. Don't worry about it, or
and
whatever.
He was the one that reached out. They both were trying to reach out, but he was the one, and he easily could have said, you're throwing 98 miles an hour. You better be able to control it.
Right.
You have to be able to control it. And unfortunately, the baseball gets away, and they get away with fastballs, and you get hit in the face. It happens every year. It's terrible, but it happens. And I thought the way that he handled that, he won over a lot of fans here in St. Louis because he's a great villain, really.
Yeah, no, and he is. My son loves him. Son's 12. He's like, Dad, have you ever seen when he throws his helmet and he gets mad? I said, he's like the hockey guy who loves when the helmet flies off just so you can see his hair. Like it's almost built to come off. But when Angel Hernandez rung him up, he chucked his helmet like 10 rows deep or more. It was so cool. Good. He's just fun for the game. Playoffs have been great. Again, you got Scherzer on the mound. It is Texas against the hated Astros, so there's a rooting interest there. The Phillies, for whatever reason, I've never liked the Phillies, but I kind of like this bunch that they're
fun. I mean, Schwarber,
kind
Castellanos.
Of a softball crew, you know?
Like you got Harper.
Forest Park on a Sunday with a keg.
Trey Turner's a great player. I mean, they're loaded, man.
I was on the elevator with Trey Turner 2 years ago when after the wild card loss. And I was you had Dodger Stadium, as you know, is so weird. You're down really low. You got to get up. Depending on if you parked in center field or behind home, you could be on the 8th floor or the 1st floor. And this guy is next to me talking to somebody. It was Trey Turner. He's really little.
Oh, yeah. He's just cut up,
but
very
a hell
strong.
Of a player. Hell of a player.
If you get guys that are wiry, what you have to watch out for is bat speed. And if they have home runs and hit home runs, it's bat speed and how they get the barrel through the zone. And if they can do that with guys that are throwing 98, they supply a little of the power. You can hit home runs, and he's a perfect example of that. Corey Seager's another example of that. I was thinking about the guys that were on the Washington Nationals, how good that team was. Strasburg was finally healthy. You had Max Scherzer in his prime. You had Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, and who's the third baseman?
Rendon.
Yeah, Rendon was
Even
there.
That Corbin used to carve us up.
Yeah, I mean, that team was loaded, man.
How about them winning the World Series the first year when Harper left?
Exactly.
In 19.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Also on my list, Dan, let's see what I got here. Blues, you got the goalie. Bennington is the story.
So I said from day one, it's really simple. You can talk about the new defensive system. You can talk about the top line, which is really good. Here it is. If your goalie or your goaler, if he's not good this year for the Blues specifically, they're not going to win. And this guy has been awesome to start this season. It's really in my mind, it's that simple. They got to get better on special teams, but if he plays out of his mind, they have a chance to win.
And when a goalie gets hot, it's just sort of contagious. Like the team just kind of plays better. When a goalie gives up a bad goal, you can just kind of feel like everybody kind of slumped down. He stopped 94 of 98 shots. Willie looked it up. Is that good? Okay, that's pretty good.
The other thing, too, is that you're able to take some chances. If you know that your goalie is going to bail you out, you can take chances, and you get the odd man rush the other way, and you get certain situations where you feel like, he's going to make this save. Let's go. I just think that that's a factor.
When they got smoked by Arizona Chiefs postgame, Craig Berube, he said, passing was awful. Didn't defend at all. He runs through this whole gamut of just how awful they were. Then Saturday night, he's like, yeah, good effort. We ate some pucks. And I was like, ate some pucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the best phrase.
Well, you got to block shots in that system.
Dan, they ate some pucks.
They did.
Is what I understood him to say.
I had my first win in fantasy football after tonight, probably. My first win, yeah.
Wow.
Do you know how hard it is to lose?
It's late October.
That's my whole point. That's how bad you have to be.
Team. You really have a bad team.
And I selected the team. I didn't let it auto-select or whatever. I felt really good.
You should have.
Hey, my guys came out. They gave a great effort this weekend. They put the nose to the grindstone. I mean, they got deep into the corners. They were taking the punishment in front.
They ate some footballs.
And it looks like I'm coming out with a win.
Who are your guys? Why are you so bad?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
We had a closed-door meeting, and I think they're going to come out and play much better.
Why don't you have your kids help you?
Because they're demolishing me. That's who I'm in the league with.
Oh, they're just destroying you.
Destroying me. They love playing fantasy football.
I got kicked out of a fantasy baseball league one year on draft day because I drafted Jesse Barfield, and they go, he's been out of the league for 2 years.
Well, how did he show up on your fantasy
draft? But they were like screaming at me, like he doesn't.
He's
even
like from the 1980s.
Well, this
Toronto Blue Jays.
This draft was a long time ago, and I swear it was Jesse Barfield. And they're like, dude, he's been retired. I was like, well, why don't you want me in the league? Then you could clobber me.
Do you watch much of the baseball?
A fair amount, yeah, especially when I'm sitting at the 2 Fox. It's on TV. And, you know, the truth is there's a lot of games going at once. But, man, the one that I really just been glued to has been this Houston-Texas thing, just because you can tell those cities that hate each other. I mean, I don't have any love for Texas. I mean, I don't have any allegiance. But it is kind of fun to see these two really get into it.
It's a dynasty right now. People say if Houston wins and they get to another World Series, and if they win, it's a dynasty. I already think it is.
When they advance
7 straight.
They don't just get in every
ALCSs.
year; they advance.
Yes,
they're always serious title contenders. How about Abreu? His shirt is unbuttoned to his navel. Like he swings and hammers. Jose Abreu will hit a home run, run around the base. His shirt, it's like the John Davidson, the old Blues GM. Like, come grow with us, JD. Your chest hairs are showing like profoundly. It's just the shirt unbuttoned. Like, anyway, it's all part of the theater. But I'm wondering if we have some downtime. World Series starts Friday night on Fox. Can the Cardinals have a little coaching news before the World Series? Get this Molina announcement out there. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
You caused quite a stir nationally with this. And we need to point this out. You were the first to report this. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Dan. But what I said was the two sides had a meeting because Molina was in town for that Wainwright event, and that he is very interested in coaching. And I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, he'll just come to spring training." I'm like, "That's not what this is." And people said, "Well, why would he want to do that?" And not my problem. I'm just telling you he does want to do it. That's all I'm saying is he wants to do it. My question is, would the league let that happen if there's a couple down days before the World Series? Because otherwise, if you're the Cardinals, this thing is brewing. You got to make some announcements fairly soon, have some clarity with your staff. I guess there's still a slight chance it falls through, but everything I've heard, he wants to be on the coaching staff day in and day out. People are like, "Oh, he won't do that." He will. He wants to. And
I think people are missing the main point with him. And yes, he wants to manage. Yes, he could be a great bench coach because he challenged Ali. You have $87 million wrapped up in a catcher that defensively falls way short, okay? You bring in the best defensive catcher of his era to help him. You've got your investment is $87 million in year one of a 5-year deal. He needs to be with him to help him out. Where was the help this year? Where was the help coming from somebody? And I know that they tried, and they went through different things. And I think at one point he FaceTimed with Molina. Let's not overlook.
That's who Contreras called during the season was Molina.
You have $87 million. So think of it from a business. If you had that investment in something, you're going to bring in somebody if it falters in year one. And I'm not saying it faltered, but defensively it wasn't good. Offensively, he was just fine. You got to get it fixed. You got to get it fixed. If it's business.
But you're saying why the Cardinals would do it. I think we all agree they should. I think the question people are asking is, why would he do it? And he's just wired differently.
He loves baseball.
Wants to teach others, wants to be around it. Is there a little part of it that says, "Oh my God, they love me so much, I'm going to be a conquering hero when I come back"? 1,000. He'll be the most popular bench coach maybe in the history of bench coaches. I'm a big Don Zimmer guy.
Boy, do you have to get to Ali and make sure that
it's going to be a little uncomfortable with the narrative, but you know Ali really well. That's a very confident guy.
Yep.
If anybody could, and I would say to him, if I'm John Mozilla, listen, Ali, yes, everybody's going to be saying he's waiting to take your job. Yes, he's going to be the fan's choice for every decision that's good, he'll get credit for. Every decision that's bad will be Ali's fault. But here's the deal. if we don't bring him back and we don't have a great coaching staff and we don't have a great offseason, you're probably getting fired anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well roll the dice and say, hey, if I've got this guy on my side, I might have a better team or a better shot to win. Maybe he'll help with the pitching. All of a sudden now, as a manager, I have a better chance to succeed, so he's my only shot. And I think they like each other, too, those two. Do you remember that Wainwright ceremony when they brought out Albert and Yachty together? Molina went right over to Ollie, gave him a big hug. And
they're close.
Yeah, so I don't think that's an issue. And the bench, people say, it's a distraction. Mark McGwire came back to be the hitting coach after admitting to steroids. Remember that offseason?
It's one of the biggest stories nationally.
Sit down with Bob Costas, and then he did local versions with all of us about the steroid use. He's Mark frickin' McGwire. Now, you had Tony La Russa, the manager, who could handle any storm, and he was already well-established. But that was a pretty big coaching potential distraction, so I don't want to hear that. I think Molina checks so many boxes. Listen, I'm not warm and fuzzy with the guy. We don't hang out. He doesn't care about me. I'm just saying for the franchise, like you're saying, it checks so many boxes.
I remember back in 2007, the Rockies are in the World Series. They got swept in that World Series, and you may recall it's in the middle of the World Series, middle of a game in which A-Rod extended his contract to $250. So basically, just re-upped it, gave him more years to $250 million. He's a lightning rod in the sport. And they announced that in the World Series, a game. It wasn't an off day. It wasn't 3-0. It was a game. And Major League Baseball frowns upon announcements, but I think that really took him over the top and said, what are you doing here?
You don't think A-Rod wanted attention, do you?
Of course he did. Of course he did. And his agent wanted the attention. But that was one of the precursors of why they say,
no big news.
Stop.
Let the postseason be the story. And I think that's all true.
So, and also, you want the story to continue with A-Rod. So you're putting yourself front and center as a sport after the World Series is done.
You have something to get to later.
Exactly.
And maybe the Cardinals are going to hold off. Maybe they haven't completed the entire staff or what their plan is with all the other positions. I'm not sure. I just think this thing has been brewing for some percolating here that this might be the week where they could get that announcement out there. And is there any chance that it falls through? I mean, Molina could get really pissed off at something they say, and then that's it, But
yeah.
My understanding is it's going to happen, and I would hope that it gets announced this week just so we can all move on with our lives, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the Pasta House Studios.
/ Lou Fuse Studios.
Last night I was with Strick. Our guy, Andy Strickland, was at Fox 2 talking blues. He's leaving. We recorded it about 6 o'clock. And he said, I got to get some food. My wife told me to get some food. And I said, dude, pastahouse.com. You could feed the whole family. And I said, there's one right there on Palace, Creve Coeur. Great food, 19 area locations. Newest one is Manchester and Woodlawn. You know that, Dan.
And if you're going to get a kid that's involved in soccer, sports, whatever, go to Fuse, fuse.com. They are the best in town in many, many ways in the huge complex that they have. So thank you to Fuse.com.
And when that kid gets older, he's going to need a refrigerator. Go to Appliance Discounters. Go to theappliancediscounters.com. Biggest names in the appliance world at the lowest prices.
Well, the other thing,
theappliancediscounters.com. And when they get really old, they can go to Marie DeVille Senior Living.
Well, but can I jump in before we get to that part? Before they turn elderly?
Well, they start a checking account and try it.
Well, that was my point, is that at some point you're going to buy a house and you're going to help and need the help from Jim Regna over at Triad Bank. He supports both of us. Walk in, grab a cup of coffee. He's going to help you out at Triad Bank. And even prior to that, you're going to get married maybe at some point. You need that diamond ring, and you got to go to Lordo's Diamonds, the best jeweler in town.
We've got your whole life planned out. Go to the bank, go to the retirement home, go to the appliance store, stop by the Pasta House, stop by the Lou Fuse Fields. Great athletic fields. In fact, I had Bill McDermott on the radio, and he was standing at a kid's soccer game watching soccer play out. It's unbelievable.
I wonder if he was at Fuse Athletic.
I forget. He told me where he was, and now I'm forgetting. Let's see. News and notes here. What was I going to tell Dan? I think we've covered a lot of ground. Oh, you keep saying we need to do this more often. Dan's been beating that drum, much like the Astros dugout in 2017. And we got an email, and he's a medical student who said he needs this more often. And I said, Dan, if we don't, we're denying the medical community.
Someone may die is what you're telling me.
The lives are on the line because, Willie, did anyone die when we didn't do a second podcast? Somebody tweeted, they're a big fan. They said, because of Willie, of course.
Really?
Do I ever need to explain that or no? You think it's better to leave it?
I think you just leave it right there.
Okay. Well, Dan screwed the whole segment up, but I think it was Willie's fault.
I don't want to. It's kind of like earlier when I was talking about the person that couldn't sleep.
I think
leave it at that.
Okay.
Leave it. Don't touch it.
I can't. Okay. Boy, this was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll do it again this week.
I think we need to float it out there because schedules get busy, and I'm not sure we want to be locked in on a second one. But
this used to be called Locked In, didn't it?
I think it was.
The show was Locked In.
Maybe an emergency great talk.
Emergency great talk. Well, how about this? If the Cards make some news
there
this
you
week,
go.
We might have to break. These are the guys who have their own brand. They're like, yeah, I'll be hopping online here real quick with an emergency Bears update. I'll be up at about midnight tonight. If you guys want to check in, I'll have a little emergency. Give you my thoughts. Everybody's giving their thoughts.
Hot takes, man.
But everybody has to chime in. Like
hot takes.
All right, we'll have an emergency great. Stay tuned. There may be an emergency great talk if events warrant.
This has been
a great talk.